Hi, everybody. This is your boy, Digital Don AV. Welcome to my smooth and groovy audio, video, and all things technology new live stream. Going to be every Monday at 8 o'clock. Super stoked to have my own deal and my closest friends here. So let's do this.
That was smooth. That was smooth, Don. That was smooth.
You like it?
I like it.
Yeah, smooth,
Excellent,
groovy.
excellent.
Groovy tunes
Man,
on the
Digital
Digital
Don.
Don live stream. We ain't going to talk about tech or measurements. We're going to talk about smooth groove and laying it out. Welcome, everybody. Sure appreciate you showing up. Oh, there's my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Teo.
Teo! Yeah.
Can't hear you, Teo.
Remember, he's a tech person. He does internet
He is a
security.
tech guy. Teo,
and he's making his microphone working.
Teo technology, and all kind of combined together, man. What's up? What's up? All right. Can we hear you? Oh, you hear us. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So tonight we're going to, and I think Shane Lee's supposed to join us too. We're just going to do a few predictions on technology trends for 2025, both audio, video, technology in general, remote control systems, where we think things might be going, what we're expecting, certainly some prediction going on here. It might not be accurate, but we try to have our finger on the pulse of the industry pretty good. So I would say that let's start this off by predictions for what we think is going to happen in home theater. Gene, what do you foresee in this coming year in technology?
I don't know, man. I just feel like things are a little bit slower right now. So I feel like people are going to be a little more conservative in spending. And we're not sure about what the impacts of the tariffs are going to be and where that's going. I see companies kind of pulling back a little bit with some of that too. And they're pulling back a little bit on some of the major trade shows, and they're focusing more on shows like Expona and CEDIA. So Don would definitely have to go to CEDIA for sure. That's going to be an important one for us.
Horses couldn't keep me away.
What's that?
Horses wouldn't keep me away from that this year for sure.
I'm hoping Yamaha finally comes out with a new line of AVRs. You know, I mean, it's in their pipeline, and people keep asking me because we just did a ton of coverage for Yamaha. I've been more focused on 2-channel over the last few months, and I've been really enjoying the simplicity of 2-channel, just setting that up, measuring it, and having an amplifier that'll actually give you more than its rated power, and you could drive the thing all day long, and it's conservatively rated and it's well crafted. I don't know. Sometimes I like to go back to my roots and not add more speakers to the mix, you know?
Yeah, I've been trying to go back to my roots, but they're not, cooperating. So.
that's long gone.
But I think we've seen a little bit of the trend. I know in Europe, 2-channel integrated amplifiers are really popular because usually the homes and the spaces comparatively aren't as big as they are here in America. And I think you probably see less multi-channel to our European friends over there. But now you're starting to see more of that resurgence of 2-channel. People having turntables, from lifestyle products like Klipsch 5s, integrated, like we looked at Gene Audio Advice, integrated turntables, things that have streamers built into them. And I'm kind of happy with it because, at the end of the day, we 2-channel guys. That's what we is. So,
yeah.
Teo, what do you think, brother?
You have no sound, Teo.
No sound, Teo.
Always doing sign language. Well, while he's sorting that out, I have a question for Captain Analog.
Go ahead, buddy.
As you guys know, Captain Analog is the turntable guru. He's the godfather of turntables. He's the master of calibration, the master of disaster.
Put the needle on the record.
So you've been looking at some pretty cool turntables for Audioholics, right, Xavier?
Yeah, right now I'm actually doing. We just finished up the rough draft on an Abbott Hi-Fi Ingenium plug and play, and it is a delight.
Yeah,
it is their beginning, their entry level turntable. But I tell you what, it's the entry level for audiophiles because this thing is unbelievable the way it isolates.
What's the brand again?
Avid Hi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
Avid Hi-Fi.
Right.
And they're from the UK. Excellent,
Oh,
excellent.
right on.
We just did a write-up for that, for your guy, and I'm excited to see some of the new products coming out at the show coming up over here in Tampa, where we're going to meet up over there and have a great time. Very excited about that.
Super cool.
Well, you said
Yeah,
you
we're
wanted
gonna
to look at you wanted to look at some Denon ones too, right? So Denon had a couple of turntables you were interested in, or
Yeah, I had approached you. Remember, what was that? A few months ago, we were looking at their 5000 series, and you said that was discontinued. They were going to make a new one. That's going to come from another source. And as soon as they get that, we're going to see if we can take a look at it. We'd be glad to review that one for sure.
So what draws you to the whole analog and the turntables when we have all the streaming? Is it just the care that you have to put into the music? Is it do you prefer the texture of it, the sound difference, or just sitting and engaging because you have to listen to the whole record and you can't skip around?
Well, I'm a bit of a masochist, so I like pain, I guess, because getting up and down every time you have to change, it's a pain for a lot of people, but I just love it. It just keeps me more engaged. To me, I'm a musician at heart. So, I mean, I got over here in my room, I got ours. And I just love that natural sound. And for my ears, because sound is so personal. And for my ears, I love that analog sound. You know, it has its limits and it has its pops and its clicks, and I try to eliminate that completely on every record that I get, every turntable that I work on. But once you dial that in, it's just pure nirvana for me. I just love it. I'm enamored by it. So that's all I have.
Well, I wish we had the opportunity to connect one of your turntables to this Yamaha piece that I just reviewed, because it has the best phono preamp I've ever measured. Like, it is really good, man. Now, you know, that Anthem one, the Anthem one is really good. It's the Anthem has moving coil and moving magnet. So this one, the Yamaha one, I think it was just moving magnet, but it had it could take in like 50 millivolts RMS unclipped. And usually the signal level of a cartridge is like 5 millivolts. And I've measured preamps, analog preamps of phono preamps that can't take more than 5 or 6 millivolts without clipping and distorting. The Yamaha one was built like a tank, man. It's really low noise and distortion, and I would love to connect that to that Michelle turntable, because I think we're going to be looking at that Michelle one this year as well. And I want you to come over here and have that set up for me too, because what you were saying with that is the big advantage of that one is its isolation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this particular one on the Avid Hi-Fi, the Michelle is also an excellent isolation system. It's different. This one has 2 different bearings, and they connect to each other right at the spindle inside, and they're 2 different materials, but it's all in the article. You're gonna love the article. And also, but the feet on this thing, it's some kind of composite material that they're using with sorbitane and foam. Man, you can walk around it. You can hit the table and the spindle. You can knock on it on the isolation puck that you use, bang, 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 and you don't hear it. It's unbelievable. Wow. I'm very.
And that's the big weakness. That's the weakness of the Marantz one, is it doesn't have good isolation.
Yeah, that's one thing that it lacks. Yeah, it falls a little bit short on that. The isolation, we worked on that. I came over to your house a few times, and it's been a nightmare, man, trying to get that cabinet isolated.
Yeah, all the old men with hairy ears that keep bumping into the table will be overjoyed and rejoiced, man, to know that, dude.
Yeah. At some point, we were getting footsteps at your house, Gene, remember? Actually, that's the main reason you call me, because you can even hear yourself.
Yeah, it translates right in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right on. So that's super cool. So, Gene, you know, I kind of feel like we're going to see more at some point, hopefully this year.
The man is here.
The eagle follows him right onto our channel.
Shane Lee. Shane. Hello, Shane Lee. How are you?
They're a little bit bright.
It's a little bright. It's a little bright. I think it's a little bright there. what's going on. So anyways, Gene, I think I'd like to see more of a trend, receiver companies building Class D amplification, kind of like NAD has done. That unit that Teo's got, that Storm Audio based piece, which is killer. I just think you can do so much more in a receiver if you use Class D amplification, good Class D amplification.
Yeah, but we're in a bit of a crisis. We're in a bit of a crisis with Class D right now because some of the Class D amplifiers on the market are not compatible with FTC testing for amplifiers. And I just tested this one. The hell's the name of it? Amped 2400, which uses a Pascal module. And Don, we use Pascal in our RBH system.
Oh yeah.
But this one, it can't drive continuous tones for more than 500 milliseconds. I mean, it's really bad. Like you can't get anywhere near its 400 watt rating at 8 ohms and 800 watts at 4 ohms. You have to do a lot of trickery in your audio precision and to even see those kind of power levels, which are mostly dynamic. But anytime I try to run a 5-minute 1 kilohertz test or even a 20 hertz or 20 kilohertz, the amps they can't even deliver half their rated power. And we don't know what to do now because this is a mandate from the FTC. So should the amplifier companies be rating their amplifiers for half the power and give you 3 or 4 dB of dynamic headroom? Or should they give you their power rating, which is based on how they test it, and then give you the FTC power? And is it fair to just limit that amplifier just to FTC power when we know these amplifiers have a lot more dynamic headroom than a traditional linear amp?
So did they make those changes that you were trying to push for in the FTC, or they just roll with what they have?
They said they were going to reopen it, and I haven't really followed up with it. But this is a big problem because if anybody sticks the letter to the law and you buy one of these amplifiers and it's claimed to be 400 watts, see, if you go on their website, it doesn't say tested per FTC. If you go on SVS's website and you look at their subwoofer amplifiers, they don't even tell you the power anymore. Everybody's afraid of being sued.
No, that's
true. It's a weird situation to be in because first of all, we don't care about the power of a closed loop system. We just care about how much clean SPL it does. So in the case with a subwoofer, it's really dumb to rate RMS power at 8 ohms, especially if the subwoofer driver is not 8 ohms. Most subwoofer drivers are 4 ohms. And if you have multiple drivers in a subwoofer, it could be down to 2 ohms. So that's dumb. But when it comes to rating amplifier power, I think there's some work that needs to be done here because you can't just give these Class D amplifiers a free pass, claiming they're double the power than they aren't. Even under regular test conditions, even before the 5-minute test, I've had struggles measuring some of these amps.
But you're going to hook that amp up and do some heavy duty listening with those.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying. Right. Look, I get the measurements. I collect the measurements, but I'm not like some people that say you could predict everything with measurements. That's a bunch of nonsense. You have to have a balance of measurements, verify, make sure there's nothing really wrong with the product, but then you got to do real world testing. You got to test it not only just with your speakers, but multiple speakers, multiple rooms, have good amount of data points, get a collection of people's user experiences with that product so you could form a more educated opinion, a more well-rounded opinion. And that's why, Don, when I test this amplifier, I'm going to test it here with a bunch of speakers I have, and then I'm going to bring it to your place. You've got the 1528 Tower 8s, which Shane Lee is dying to get a pair of those in for review.
I think they're ugly.
He's dying to get those in for review.
I think they're ugly.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. He would just give him a bad review just out of spite. I know how Shane is.
Well,
Scott Newby. Where's Scott Newby in the house? He's in the house.
Scott Newby, my man. So I'd like to see receiver companies start making very powerful, like legit 200 watts a channel and 8 ohm times 11, which you can do with Class D, and more subwoofer outputs because we're starting to see this explosion of people now embracing as an industry multi-sub. 2 was better than 1, obviously, but 4 would be better even to do that. Maybe some better bass management. Some of these systems would be cool.
Well, and to Denon and Marantz's credit, they've implemented 4 subwoofer outputs on most of their products. They're the leader.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The leader of bass management, the leader of room correction. They've got Dirac and Odyssey.
Yeah.
And the Odyssey PC software is phenomenal if you know how to
I
use
just
it.
think that Marantz Pre-Pro that you have for your family room system is just a really good, solid piece of gear. I mean, in the scheme of heavy hitter, expensive pre-pros, it's a pretty good value.
It's the
Which is
best
something
15 channel. It's the best 15 channel processor, the Anthem second, right, Teo?
Oh boy!
Come on, Teo. Let's have this battle.
We're gonna just continue having the battle. I love the Anthem, and I think it's a fantastic sounding piece. So
It is.
What do you got behind you?
I
I
love the
have
background.
what we're going to be talking about with some of my picks for trends. I got some
You
show
got
and tell.
the divas?
Nice. He came on.
Mother.
Oh man!
Really?
I got show and tell tonight.
Oh,
Congrats.
dude, did you? And you didn't tell me?
I didn't
All
tell
right.
you anything.
I'm
I got
cutting you
a
off.
couple of
You're
Didn't
things.
tell
off.
anyone.
So I'm going to wait my turn, and then we'll have show and tell.
Let me do this quick super chat, and then it's your turn. So we got the super
Okay.
chat from Home Theater Denmark. Don, my Viking brother, hello to all. Greetings from Denmark. Thanks for the super chat.
Go. That's right. My Viking
Awesome.
brother.
Awesome.
All right, so Teo, what's your thought process on audio? And obviously, powered speakers was on my list to talk about. So
So a
Take it
couple of
away.
things. But let me go to my list here. And I think what we're going to continue to see is a trend. I'm actually going to use Focal's word called simplexity, where the end user, our modern day audiophile and home theater lover, doesn't want to deal with the tech. It's too complicated, and therefore they want simplicity. So I want to actually bring in this amazing guy right here, which it's beautiful, right? So this is the $40,000 a pair Focal Diva Utopia,
yeah,
and
nice.
it is just a gorgeous reference speaker. But here's what's amazing about it. So I got these in. They were from another reviewer, and now I'm next in line. I popped these into my theater and fired up the app, and we've all used room correction. We're talking about Odyssey, Dirac, Anthem Arc. With a simple app, within about 10 minutes, you can get these things dialed into your living room. You don't need a microphone. You don't need to deal with calibration issues. And it just sounds great. I have to tell you, what Focal has done with these guys is really amazing. And in particular, they've made tuning a speaker into your room truly simple. And I think we're going to start to see more of this active speaker, DSP based. The amp is all built in. As more and more going up and down the line, I think we're going to see more and more companies do that. 30 minutes, I had the whole thing set up ready to go. And it has an HDMI port in the back, so I can plug this into my television. It has eARC. It supports aptX Adaptive, so I can stream high-res via Bluetooth if I still want to do that. It ties into the major streaming services. It just does everything. It's a very, very impressive piece of high-end audio gear at a simple setup. I don't know. Pretty darn cool, if you ask me.
Yeah, there's definitely a trend, Teo, for high-end active speakers like that, full range. Focal, the fact that
100%.
Focal got in that space shows you that this is a growing trend, you know?
Well, one of these streams we're going to do here in the next few weeks, I'm going to have a bunch of speaker designers. I'm going to try to get some real experts on speaker development, speaker design, manufacturing, and we're going to talk about, measurements, how they measure, and we're going to talk about, all the factors that go into making a great speaker, including the ultimate test, actually listening with your ears. But going to the powered speakers, there's just so many advantages to having a powered speaker with built-in DSP, where everything is bespoke, custom made for that speaker, the drivers, the cabinetry, how it interacts in a room, heavily tested. I mean, Focal is a phenomenal speaker company. I mean, they probably have I would say they probably have in the top one or two best speaker making facilities on earth. I mean, they've got clean rooms and labs and, testing equipment we can dream of. But that's going to be a cool stream to do that. And I think we're going to see more and more powered speakers coming onto the market, and not just repurposed studio monitors, but legit hi-fi
Yeah.
speakers.
And I think we're going to be, so this is going to be a trend that we're going to probably see over the next 5 years. So this is going to be a niche product for sure, a niche product. But I think that they're probably going to hit all their sales targets. And you're going to start to see this, is you're going to start to see traditional hi-fi products start to do this. And then you're going to see eventually the active speakers take over as a dominant thing, is the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings and the teens start to make more money and are able to do this. And it's just such an advantage top to bottom. I have no gear. That was really the crazy thing about it, is like you all, I mean, I've got my processors, I've got amps. I could just move these aside, get them out of the way because they're on wheels, and then I could set them up again. And I had it done in a matter of minutes, which is not my experience with other gear. So very impressed.
No, that's super cool, man.
I'd like to address this question because it's a good one. So I was under the impression that Class D has less headroom and clipped harder when pushed to the max compared to Class AB. Gene, you need to do a video to clear that up. So yeah, this is a complicated topic because it really depends on the amplifier we're talking about. So the amplifiers I tested for the Marantz, I think they use the ICE module, and they're 200 watts a channel, full bandwidth, no matter whether there's one channel driven or all channels driven, whether I do a full sweep or I do a dynamic burst, it didn't really make much of a difference. That power supply was so heavily regulated, there was no headroom. You just get 200 watts. But with the Pascal 400 watt amp, it's not a 400 watt amp. It's really a 200 watt amp with 3 dB of headroom because it can't do 400 watts continuous. But when you run a burst test through it, it's got a lot of headroom. So their design goals are different, in my opinion. So it's a matter of semantics and how you're rating the continuous power to determine how much headroom you have, in my opinion. And that's something that I'm going to do a little more research. I'm going to probably look at all the measurements I've done on all the different Class D amplifiers and compare it to some of the best linears. And this post here gave me the incentive now to do a video on that. So thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate it.
And Gene, wouldn't you say with the Class D, it's not just the modules, it's the application and how the modules are applied and whatnot? Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could buy a reference design. You could buy turnkeys. Like a lot of these small companies like Buckeye, they just buy a reference design, put it in a project box and sell it to you for cheaper. Whereas someone like NAD will buy the OEM schematic and then they'll build that module to their specification. They'll customize the power supply, they'll customize the parts. Marantz does the same thing. The Amp 10 is all built from the ground up, even though it uses a reference design from Purify. That's why it costs a lot more money, because they're putting their own stuff into it, and they're putting the cosmetics into it, and they're changing things up. So yeah, there's definitely some customizations that can be done to that, as opposed to just buying the turnkey reference design that some of these other companies are doing. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing if you're on a budget, and that could make a lot of sense to you. But there's wiggle room in what you could do with these products when you change up your power supply and change up other components.
So are you saying some of those brands that just buy off the shelf modules is going to sound different than something that NAD would produce?
It's potential. Yeah, it's potentially could sound different. It could definitely measure differently. I mean, whether you could hear it in a controlled test is another, topic of discussion, because it's difficult to do really controlled listening tests of amplifiers. You need switchers. It has to be instantaneous. You have to not know which one's switching. And sometimes even doing back and forth blind testing can overstimulate you after a while. Then everything sounds the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I prefer long-term testing personally. I prefer living with an amp for a couple of weeks, switching it out, living with it again. I mean, I like doing a little bit of both.
Overstimulation is not that bad,
What's that, Don?
Overstimulation is not that bad.
One at a time.
Here's a trend. Here's a trend for Teo. Teo, do you see that there's a future in small budget projectors taking over the big guy projectors?
I do. That's on my. You probably noticed, because I think you had this, right? This is my second show and tell. Is I have the Valerian.
Whoa.
So This is a lifestyle projector. It's their Pro 2. So I just got it in a little while ago. It came in last weekend, and I've set it up. And I'll tell you, it's I forget what the price is, like $2,000 something. Somebody's going to have to spot check me on this. Has an Android OS built right into it, so it has all the streaming apps. And basically, you plug it in, and it will auto configure itself to your setup. So on my 2.4 screen, I just pointed it at the screen. I hit auto keystone, and it automatically stretched and fit the screen. So this whole notion of simplicity, 3,000 lumens, supposedly super bright image, not as black as a JVC. But I think that we're going to start to see something like this where I called it big picture is in and big picture entertainment anywhere. One of the posts said, what, is there something like 140-inch television? How much is it going to cost you to get a 140-inch TV versus spending a few thousand, putting this on your wall, taking it outside into your backyard, getting an outdoor screen, the portability, flexibility, and I think good enough performance is going to be a very intriguing thing to watch in the coming year or two. So
is that their flagship model? I know that Giles was reporting on those. And
so right now, this is their flagship model. This is called the Pro 2. They are coming out with the Max, which is going to be coming out after May. And that's going to have a lens that you can do a throw to a 2.4 screen. It's going to have a longer throw and some additional features that are more akin to what we would consider a regular projector from like a JVC, a Sony, or an Epson. So I think this is a chance to be a real disruptor in the field, if you will.
Is it a laser?
It is. So it's a DLP laser. So it comes with all the pros and the cons of a DLP. So I have that rainbow.
Do you see rainbows? Do you see rainbows? I'm very susceptible to seeing rainbows.
So I am as well. So I do see that, but I can totally appreciate what it delivers. And again, this is like a smart TV that's portable. Like that's maybe the best way to describe it. So how are you going to get a 200-inch television into your room today that's affordable and that's feasible? Throw something up, you take this inside outside. It's disruptive.
Personally, I think short throw projectors are dead. There's no reason for them. Yeah. Not when you can buy a Hisense 100-inch TV for $3,000.
$2,000.
$2,000. Yeah. The short throws, they're noisy. They're noisy. You have to have them about 18 inches off the front wall. You can't
hard
put
to place your center.
Yeah. I don't like short throw projectors. I had one, got rid of it.
Yeah, I do have the ALR screen as well. So they sent me the ambient light rejecting screen as well. So I haven't put it together. So I have it on a $7,000 Stewart film screen, to give you an example. So the color is excellent. I am in white areas. I'm getting like that RGB, so I'm able to see all of that stuff. Again, it's the drawbacks of the DLP. But for what you get, and look at the inputs on this guy here. The build quality really surprised me. I've got Toslink out, I've got USB, I have 3 HDMI plus eARC, I have built-in Wi-Fi, and I have Ethernet as well. So from a connectivity point of view, this is very, very impressive. This is not a product that I would say is going to replace an NZ700 from a JVC, certainly not an NZ800, regardless of what you've seen. I had the NZ800 and the NZ8, the black levels. It's just a better picture. But for what this is, it's disruptive, that's for sure.
I got a lot of flack for saying that it's not going to replace the JVC, and people were like, "You're crazy! It's this is changing the game, and it's under $2,000, and it's right there with the JVC." I was like, "Guys, I have like 2 JVCs."
Everybody wants to believe their Crown amps are better than good amps.
And by the way, anybody looking for a Valerian Pro, not the one he's got, the step down model, I have one for sale. Make sure you email me. Thank you.
On his Patreon.
Got
a super chat here.
No, definitely these
thank you.
The budget kind of budget projectors, for lack of a better term, just like anything, just like we're seeing the large scale TVs, 98-inch TVs for $2,000, $3,000, even a Sony you can get into for under $5,000 if you look around. And these more powerful, as technology advances and the price point comes down, pretty good projectors. Again, like Teo said, it's not going to replace a reference flagship projector, but they're probably going to get a lot closer than you think. And I think that line will be blurred in just a couple of years, if not sooner. Video is progressing fast, which leads me into my next area of prediction, and that is direct view LEDs becoming more prominent as the price point shrinks and some of the disadvantages, being heavy use of power, creating a ton of heat, connectivity. I think you're going to start seeing those come down. I mean, they're still very expensive by any measure. However, they have come way down in price and increased in performance. I mean, there's some companies making some beautiful video walls out there, and you're going to see a whole industry pop up around it, like with audio and being able to overcome that. What are your thoughts on that, Gene?
Not really my space, man. I'm trying to focus on the audio side. So when it comes to the video stuff, I'll let you guys I'll let you guys deal with that.
Well, then I'll talk to Teo, put him on the spot.
I haven't done a deep dive into it, so that's not my area of super expertise. But I've got some questions, frankly, about what's going to happen with 8K. Are we at the point where the bandwidth requirements, how far is the infrastructure in the US to be able to support the increase in bandwidth? I mean, where I live throughout the state, they made a commitment last year to bring fiber, at least availability everywhere. So I think as we look at content delivery plus increasing screen sizes and then the content delivery, I'm not sure how all these things are going to fall in place, frankly. So I don't know if I answered your question or just avoided the question.
Well, I'll go to Shane on that one, because I know Shane, we've had some in-depth conversations about this, and I think you're getting a direct view to demo, aren't you, to review? Is that true?
What was the question again? Are you going to get micro LEDs?
Yeah, I thought you were going to get one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the future. They're coming down in price. I think it's going to be a thing this year. I think what's the AOL starting at like $7,000, $8,000, and then the 162 is $40,000 or $50,000 for a full 4K res. So I think it's going to become more available. Although, we brought this up last time. The gentleman didn't have an answer for us, but now we know that in order to get full 4K with those micro LEDs at that pixel pitch, which I think was like 0.9. To get 4K, you have to get the 162 inch. Anything below that is not 4K native. So I mean, that's something to think about too.
Natively. No, I do. I think that this is going to become a thing as the price point comes down. And large TVs. I mean, I know there's a whole group of people that still, stick with all their heart to projection systems. They feel like it's a more cinematic experience. You get to use acoustically transparent screen. So there's really strong arguments for that. And I've seen some projectors look amazing, but I think overall, given the choice between a direct view full 4K LED and a similar or same size projection system, that most people are going to pick the picture quality. It's just nature of the technology. You know what I mean? So Xavier, you're not just analog. What do you think about some stuff coming up this year? I know you got thoughts, brother.
I got thoughts, man. I'm all about the analog
what
stuff.
Do you think?
So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these tube amps that are coming out right now, especially some of these OTL headphone amps that have pre-outs, and you can connect them into your whole system and add in some tube flavor. And it's magical. I have a couple of them, and I've connected them to I have several systems here, and it just widens the sound stage and butters it up. Just put a little butter on that music with the tubes. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, and I've seen a lot of companies coming out with a lot of products targeting the youth, the next generation, which is one thing that I advocate for a lot. And I'm really looking forward to getting the youth more involved in the analog space. They really love the vinyl space, and maybe getting them towards some of the tubes because they love the nostalgia of it. That's the only reason they get into it. you know, they're like, oh wow, my dad grew up with this, and I really want to experience that, and so I think tubes is also a trend that's starting, and I think with the headphones, all these kids have headphones now, and uh, introducing them into some affordable OTLs and similar products. I think that's the trend that I see in town, at least here in town in Central Florida.
Right on.
Who makes most of the tubes? Is it the Russians or is it Chinese? Because I know the Russians have always made the best tubes, right?
Actually, the American tubes, the new old stock tubes they're the primos.
They still make them
In,
here.
in my opinion, very little. Mostly everything is done in, like you said, in China. There's some other countries that make them, but the Russian tubes are great. But they don't throw anything away, man. So the problem with that is consistency. So when you buy tubes, if you are buying them from eBay, make sure that you're buying them from somebody that's reputable. You know, look at your comments. You know, talk to some of your friends, and I really encourage people to join some of these groups on like Facebook or whatever social media you're interested in, and just ask around, because you can buy some, for example, new all stock, uh, any of the brands, any that made in America and then UK that sound amazing, but then you're buying a used tube and then they're selling it like it's brand new. You put it in, oh yeah, it sounds great for like a week, and then it starts getting microphonic. You start hitting like crinkle noises because it's a light bulb essentially, and it has a life. It has a shelf life, so you got to keep up with that. And but if you're gonna buy some tubes, that's one thing that I recommend is make sure you do a little bit of research, and once you find some good sources for them, and there's plenty out there, then you basically with a single tube on a headphone setup with an OTL, your front driver tube, which is the one that dictates the sound of it, you can have a system basically in your headphones that sounds bassy, like a DJ, all cool and everything, and then you can switch the tube out, make it sound really clean and analog and audiophile and super wide spaces. You can just change the sounds with them. It's just, I think it's amazing. So just for a few bucks, you can have like different systems in a shelf.
I'm gonna get
It
on
seems
my
like
order.
somebody should come out with a headphone preamp that has DSP in it to simulate all that.
That would be
Yeah,
cool.
I would actually love to see a nice one that will have some kind of at least an moving magnet phono stage in there,
Yeah.
and maybe some Bluetooth capabilities. There's a lot of good companies right now getting into the Bluetooth space, and I know that's screeching sound for a lot of people, but I'm talking about like the youth market, which I actually target a lot because that's all I see around here. I live in a college town down here in Orlando, so that's what I'm exposed to. And these kids, man, they just love all this stuff, all this analog,
Very cool.
you know? So it's great, man.
So I saw this come up a super chat. Second time I've seen this question. Dante integration with multi-channel processors. I know some of the pro processors have that. I know was it? I don't know if Storm has
Storm
Dante.
has Dante integration.
Yeah. So okay, Storm has Dante. Does Trinoff have Dante, Shane?
Not yet.
Harman does in their processors, and I know because I know Grimani uses Dante when he sets up his systems, but I don't know if Dante's ever going to get into the mainstream or not.
Well, so in the integration world, that I live in, there's a lot of products that have Dante because it solves a lot of issues for sending signal and combining various different audio systems in different locations, or sending audio data long distances. I know they're heavily used in churches, commercial applications. It's just a very clean way to transmit audio. I know Savant uses it. So you're going to start seeing that. I don't know how big that'll build. I think we need more affordable pre-pros. Wouldn't you say so, Gene? And, try to break into that $2,000-$3,000 price range.
Yeah. And I think we are going to see one mid-year. I can't say from who, but I'm going to be beta testing it. And people are going to be very happy to see the brand coming back. But I think there are a couple of options, but if you don't have a dedicated pre-pro option in the $2 or $3 grand range, some of these AVRs have really good pre-outs. The Marantz and Denon ones particularly, because they've been working with us for years when I've been testing their pre-outs, and now they have preamp disconnect and they give you 4 volts RMS out. Very viable to use those as dedicated pre-pros, or just use them to power your high channels and then buy some external amplification.
When you say that there's no real big advantage for most balanced outputs on a lot of the pre-pros versus just RCA outputs, I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, most of them don't. Most of them just use a simple phase splitter, and you're not getting any better noise or distortion. And some of them don't even follow the balanced gain structure. This amplifier I have behind me has the same gain whether it's unbalanced or balanced. There's not a 6 dB difference there. So it's just, there's really no advantage to the balanced outputs in that case. But
unless you have to send your signal at distance, has some advantages.
Hey Gene, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Backtrack to the Yamaha that you just reviewed.
Yeah.
You said the moving magnet it measured really well. I'll be super curious to see how your turntable will sound on there. Is there any way you can hook up that? Because I have a question. I want to see, because you just mentioned gain. A lot of my clients, when I go and set up their systems, are always complaining about the noise, the volume level on the turntable is always lower than too low. So, which is one of the reasons I mentioned the OTL amps, because you put them in line from, like, I have one set up like that right here. I go from the turntable to the phono preamp to the OTL, then to the actual preamp, then the amp, and now I have volume control just to gain it a little bit more, to give me a little bit more gain and balance it. Now my preamp has that capabilities, but a lot of people don't have that capability, or they don't know how to use it. So I'm very curious to see how that, you saying that it measures so well, just to see how the gain is, if it's balanced. Did you test any of that at all with your measurements, or?
Well, I tested the preamp. I didn't actually hook a turntable up to it. And if it's not shipped back before Florida Audio Expo, we could. I already put it in its box. So I'm just waiting for Yamaha to pick it up. But if they don't pick it up in time, we'll pull it out and plug it into my Marantz when you're here and try it out.
Okay.
Bring a couple of preamps and we'll compare it.
I will. I'll bring a couple OTLs. I also have the Ingenium. I was gonna talk to Wendy to bring it over too, because I wanna hook it up to your system as well and see how that isolation, those isolation feet work on your cabinet, because the main issue is the floor in your cabinet in your house. So it'll be the perfect test right there.
Oh yeah. Yep. Nice comment there, Matthew.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. So, in honor of many of our illustrious friends here, I think subwoofers, we're in another paradigm shift. no pun. But I remember when subwoofers, the great shrinkage of subwoofers, when it started with the Sunfire, then Velodyne had some, and all the companies started making these very small 8-inch, 6-inch, 10-inch subs with 3,000 watts on a small pistonic driver and a sealed cabinet. None of those really sounded like a big sub. With bass, there really is no replacement for displacement. And now we're starting to see subs like 18s, which were always the biggest subs, the big bad boys. Very few people had 18s. And a lot of the 18s didn't sound great. Some of them sounded wonderful, like starting with the Velodyne DD18. But now we're starting to see 21-inch subs, 24s, 32, 33, 50. We're starting to see this size increase. And the drivers for some of these subs are works of art. And I think if we could take, kind of like what Perlison does, if we could take these big drivers and nice cabinets and maybe add some DSP to them, whether it's emanating from the processor or mini DSP or built into the system, I think we're going to start seeing amazing things with bass.
I agree.
I mean, we all have monster subs, all of us.
Do you think the trend of, at least this year, I think like previous years, I feel like the trend was going like smaller, like the small CAF 92, Martin Logan Abyss 8. But now, maybe this year, the trend might be going upwards. You mentioned like more people getting more 24s in, 32s, 33s. I know Pierce has something bigger than a 50. So do you feel like maybe anybody that has a bunch of 18s is going to feel like their system's inadequate now?
No, I listen, as an integrator, we put in systems all the time. Yeah, I know. Hey.
Chulo.
But where you can't put an 18, no matter how small the cabinet is. I mean, just the spouse acceptance factor. So small subs are always going to have their place, and some of them sound great. I mean, I don't think you can make an 8 sound like a 15, but it's pretty good bass, and they sound good. They're always going to be around. But the trend for the big theaters and a lot of enthusiasts is the larger subwoofers now, and the price points drop. Companies like GSG and Power Sound, and then you get your JTR and whatnot. The companies are making big subs, but they're more affordable, a lot of them, than they used to be in the past.
Well, and in some cases, you get people that do smaller multi-sub, and then they'll add one big infrasonic sub.
Yeah.
So,
like everybody here.
That's what I was going to mention.
Or a wall of subs like Teo.
Yes. Which is on my Focal review. I think the game changer with the infrasonic subs also is going to go hand in hand with with what's happening in room correction. So obviously, I mean, you have waveforming with Trinov, and now you have Dirac Art. So behind the scenes, if you saw the Focal 1000 series review that I did, it's now on the Audioholics homepage. Real deep dive review. It actually has been going on for almost 2 years. And then we paired an RBH 21-inch sub with this fantastic Focal architectural lineup. And then we have the two 1212 SW on-wall RBH subs that are only 5 inches deep. And those things will play down to 20 hertz. What's amazing with 3 subs in the room is I basically have flat bass response, and I'm playing bass down to 6 hertz. I couldn't have conceived of that just a few years ago.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. I mean, that system that you have is very complex system.
Yeah.
It's simple in some ways because you have the receiver on it and some amps, but it's also very complex, and you have spent way too much time calibrating. That's Teo's hobby, is calibrating his system. Like you make Gene look bad because that's all Gene. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to get this little null out of my system.
I've kind of given
about a quarter dB, and I'm like, dude, stop. Just listen.
I've taken a break. I got to get back into that again. Teo's upped his game, so I got to get back into that.
Look at the results, though. It's pretty darn impressive, isn't it?
Takes a lot of Band-Aid fixing to get Art to do that, though. A lot of Band-Aid.
That review is really phenomenally well done, and you did that system solid, man. It was. I mean, if somebody's really interested in dropping that kind of coin, or maybe an integrator is looking to pick up the Focal speaker line and was curious about it, I sent it to my buddy Freddie, who's Control Freaks here in Tampa, who's opening a Focal powered by name showroom a few days before the audio show starts, and he's got the full Focal as a requirement for a Focal powered by name. And he loved the review. He said, "Man, that guy really did a great job. Really, that was cool."
That's great. Thank you.
Well, that's why we do this, right? Hopefully, get some impact.
Well, thanks for your help on the wall in the rebuild.
The
you ever think about pairing up each sub with each speaker? One sub with each speaker?
So the answer is yes. I don't have enough channels in the processor. So we can go down a rabbit hole. That's one of the real advantages of going with something like a Storm Audio, like the Focal, is you can actually do active crossover with all the speakers. But I need a new processor that has more channels to really do that.
Trinov, you hear? Trinov, are you there?
Or I can go for another Storm processor that has 24 or 32 channels.
There you go. No, it's awesome, man. We've all kind of went on that adventure over the last couple of years and having to rip down the wall and rebuild it, which I'm glad you did, because now you ain't got no problems, right?
No, it sounds great.
More money, more problems.
No, he's got like double layers and green glue and insulation and 2x6s. I mean, it literally is no SWAT teams coming through that. No.
It's all in the video.
Oh yeah, he's not coming through. You know what I mean?
Close the loop on that. If Storm or someone's interested, I actually have 15 in-ceiling speakers that are already deployed that are waiting. My limitation is channel count at this point. So that's where I am.
Oh,
Got a
yeah,
super
well,
chat here from Snow in Okinawa. Please, for the love of
Okinawa.
God, Buddha, and Allah, let Sony be the one to release a 360 SSM Pre-Pro this year. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I'd just like them to put a PEQ in their receivers. The Sony
Yeah.
ES receivers are phenomenal. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. Unfortunately, all you have is their built-in processing, which is excellent, but it'd be nice to be able to have a PEQ. They just said they didn't have room to put it in, so I would love.
I think it's unacceptable for any AVR today to not have a manual PEQ function. At least for
most people don't. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, Denon and Marantz still have a GEQ. Luckily, they have Dirac and Odyssey, so you could go and manually do it yourself, but you have to run the room correction in order to access those menus.
Nah,
so the whole GEQ stuff needs to go away.
But for most people, they're just going to hook up the receiver and plug it in, or have an integrator plug it in and run the microphone. You know, we're in a different, group of hobbyists, people that, the sound's super important to them, so they're going to take the time to either calibrate it or have a pro like Matthew Pose or Brandon Hill or some of these other people out there remotely do calibrations for them, which is really cool. We're getting a little short on time, but one thing I want to touch on is you're going to start seeing AI have a more prominent role, whether it's AI processing video at rates that we can't imagine. We've seen AI. I think Yamaha had the surround AI, right, Gene? Kind of a more basic version of it. I think you're gonna see AI more in the control systems. With the two formats, Thread and Matter, are starting to become more and more mainstream. So Thread and Matter is a communication protocol, or Thread is the way it communicates. Matter is a protocol, so that devices all compatible, whether from brand to brand, as long as they're in that. So what I'd like to see is more affordable remote control systems. Hey, Teo, what was the one that you've been using that you were talking about, and what kind of money is it?
So I use Roomy Remote. I've been using it for many, many years. You can actually look on Audioholics. I reviewed it back in an early iteration, and I think I was telling you I had actually done the original Anthem 50V RS-232 control codes for it. But it's a great product. It does an amazing job with IP controlled devices, has a very extensive library, and it's user-friendly and simple to use. And they've got a decent pricing model that doesn't break the bank as well.
What kind of roughly money is it? Yeah, that's what Shane uses.
Ooh, I think it's like $100 a year for, don't quote me, like 20 devices. And I was also able to I bought a lifetime subscription, which I figure, if they don't change the platform significantly over 5 years, it pays for itself. So that was a couple of $100. I don't remember the exact price.
Well, very cool. So another thing we're going to talk about too is, and I've talked to Teo about helping me with this, is I would like to start getting some affordable control systems brought in to test them out and see, because as an integrator, I live in the world of Control4, Savant, Crestron, and those are amazing systems, but they require a professional company to install it. Now they do everything. They're very solid, very reliable, but most people can't spend that kind of money. So I'd like to give some alternatives and rate it. Yeah, that's what Shane's been using for a while.
That's Roomy. Yeah.
All you bottom feeders enjoy that. No, but it I think when Harmony went away, it left a gap, left a space.
Yep.
I know that universal remotes make some consumer, but I don't know how good those are versus the professionally programmed ones. It'd just be nice to have. Maybe Roomy's one of the products that we'll wholeheartedly recommend. Now, can you control multi-room with that? Can you integrate?
I have a multi-room, multi-home. The other thing you can do is you can integrate security cameras into it now, lighting, so you can do entire scenes. And they have a companion app where we're not going to get time into that. If you have television on the outside of a display outside your theater, you can actually do Now Playing, and you can integrate all of that stuff through Roomy. And the price point is great. It's just what's difficult is you need ideally one device is the controller if you're going to have multiple people in your home using it. So I love it, and I've been using it for years.
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool. Yeah, so we're gonna check that out and some other options. I know, again, there's a big, under $1,000 price point, and people want to control their products. And now that most everything have IP drivers, that's made that possible. Sheila is drunk and it distracts me.
It is.
Always the internet.
Awesome.
It's always good for something. But
All right,
so
Don. Well,
yeah, every Monday at 8:00. I'm going to try. I've got some really great guests lined up. We're going to have some really cool subjects. We're going to talk about some things that are trending and hot topics or whatnot. I'm going to have speaker designers, manufacturers come on and talk about products. So I just wanted to kind of get this going with some predictions and trends with you guys. And heartfelt thank you for joining us. I'm going to do my best to have good content and a good stream for you here at Audioholics. I'm grateful.
awesome. Well, guys, that is a wrap. If you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. Don't forget about Shane Lee's Patreon so he could get a real remote control in the system. Help him out.
Oh,
He's
look
got
at
his own
Shane.
PS as well.
It's throwing me hard.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All
And
my
until
brothers.
next time, are you guys ready? Keep listening.
Listening.
It's